Hey, everybody, welcome to the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast. I am here with Chris Dyer, and let me see. She is inspiration. Like, I know her from a mastermind group, so I'm glad to help you all get to know her. And what she says about herself is she says, I love to inspire women by creating safe spaces to teach and model what wellness looks like in life and business. Her perspective is holistic in nature and examines all the dimensions in which we live. Now, that I'm looking forward to talking to her about. She says there is abundance everywhere and that we are divinely created to be able to handle life and the challenges that are part of our path. So, here's another piece of the quote, which I find interesting too. She said she works with Gen X women and a few good men who are her specialty and her lived experience. She says, we have much programming and unlearning from decades of traditional and conventional thinking that does not always work for the 20th century person. Hallelujah, because you got that. Chris, welcome to the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast. Is there anything I missed that you wanted to tell us about who you are?
No, and thank you for the refresher because it's been a while since I sent that. It's like,
Yeah,
wow, that's pretty profound. I need to go
that was
back and
good.
I need to repurpose that.
I'll send it to you.
Awesome, thank you. No, it's a privilege to be here. So thank you, Kim.
Well, we love talking to people with lots of interesting perspectives. And we've been moving this year into talking about mental health, mental wellness, energy, all the things. And I love that this is where you come from. So I'm looking forward to talking to you. So what one of the things I saw was you said you wanted the a focus to be about understanding how our energy affects everything in our lives, including our current state of health and well-being. So I want to know, how does our energy affect everything in our lives? I don't know. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
So my background, and I'm very, very comfortable with, was the physical body, human anatomy, physiology. I was a science geek. I loved biology, loved chemistry, loved all the sciences, and that's my lane. That's my zone of genius. And so I worked in healthcare. I was an X-ray tech, which I have some tongue in cheek. I like to say I have X-ray vision, which in the physical sense, I knew what a healthy body looks like, and I also know what a deconditioned body looks like, right? Just because
Yeah.
I have that visual knowing of the diagnostics and the tools that are used in the healthcare setting. And then, of course, anytime a patient would come in, you'd have the correlation, the physical symptoms or what somebody would describe, pain or whatever that's going on, and then you see the result and how it shows up on the inside of the body. Well, as we know, people can look healthy and fit, but there could be things going on inside their body that aren't showing up, right? They don't have pain, or sometimes even and this is beautiful, where having that trained eye and also intuition is, I almost kind of like take the role of a radiologist. A radiologist could say, looking at X-ray, and if the patient was saying, my pain is in a certain spot, and of course the radiologist is going to focus on that certain spot, but the radiologist is going to zoom out and look at the full picture, and
Hmm.
they're actually going to see maybe referred pain. Maybe there's actually a different site in that picture of the cause of the pain. And so there's not always correlation and causation, but there could be some referred things going on that are creating the sense of dis-ease, discomfort, or pain in wherever it's showing up in the body.
So the body sometimes shows, like if you say, ouch, or this part hurts on the x-ray, you could find it in that spot. Or sometimes it wasn't in that spot, it was somewhere else, but it's just
Right.
affecting that spot.
Right, exactly. For instance, I'll give a perfect example,
Yeah.
a real lived. So, for instance, a chest X-ray. Somebody's coming in, maybe they're short of breath, whatever, and you do a couple views of the chest. You do a front, and then you do a side. But what's interesting is when you're doing the whole chest, you're getting the whole upper thorax, basically, right? You're getting the
Okay.
shoulders, you're getting clavicles, you're getting spine, because all those bony structures, even though they're just looking at the lungs primarily and the heart, the
Yeah.
size of the heart in relation, you
Yeah.
get these bony structures also. So one case in particular, somebody was coming in with some shortness of breath, they're having some discomfort, and they were just kind of spitball looking for whatever could be the cause, and we're thinking that, okay, there might be something going on. It could be tuberculosis, it could be cancer, it could be a lot of things that show up on a diagnostic x-ray.
Yeah.
Well, what ended up happening is that it was actually in his shoulder. This person came in for a chest x-ray thinking there was something going on in the lungs. He actually ended up having cancer in his shoulder, right? So it showed up way in the top of the lungs. But a trained eye, if you were just looking at the lung tissue, you would
Oh.
miss something. So you have to zoom out and look at the whole picture and evaluate everything, right? There's more, what is the cliche? There's more that meets the eye or something
More
like
than
that.
what meets the eye. Yes. Yes.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
when you introduce me as being a holistic type of practitioner, our lives are multidimensional, right? We have other dimensions that don't get talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So coming from healthcare, coming from being in the fitness world, being a health and group fitness exercise coach, a personal trainer, health coach, that's a very physical world. That's the 3D, that's what we can touch and see.
Right.
And yet, what makes a bigger impact on the external world that we can see is the internal world that we can't see.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the emotional and psychological and spiritual dimensions come into play. And all of these exist within all of us. And some of those dimensions have just been ignored, turned off.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're kind of living a flat life, our life doesn't have any color, it doesn't have
Mm-hmm.
any joy, there's no enthusiasm. More than likely, some of these different dimensions have just been quieted or suppressed or repressed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we start looking for solutions outside of us.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking for something to take away the pain, or we're looking for something outside of us to give us joy or to even feel love,
Yeah.
because we've been allowed to disconnect from ourselves
Mm-hmm.
in a very noisy world.
Yeah.
We've been conditioned and programmed.
So it's like what I think I hear you saying is that we we might either look inner or outer, but we always look for the fix outer,
Yes.
right? It could be emotions. What did you say? You said we're living a flat life.
Yeah.
Wow. That I wrote that one down. That was powerful. Like a flat, I mean,
Three-dimensional.
I could
Yeah.
see that, right? Or we have a physical something going, the lungs are hurting. And like, what do we look to? External,
Mhm.
whatever that might be. Whatever that might be, we look outside to
Mhm.
fix it. We do whatever, other people, we take chemicals, whatever those might be,
Right.
drinks or smokes or whatever the thing is to fix it. But then you're saying that's not
It's
really
not
where
always
it's
the
at.
case. There's always something deeper and inward.
Yes.
Right? And so those additional dimensions, right? The physical is the three-dimensional, what we can see and touch, what, science can explain. It can be reproduced, right? It
Yeah.
can be proven and confirmed time and time again.
Right.
The
We can
internal
see it.
dimension, you can see it, yeah. And people are, the cliche, I won't believe it until I see it, or, believe it first and then see it, rather than see it first and then believe. So belief first so that you can see.
Yeah.
And
So that's actually, I remember, I don't know if you know Wayne Dyer.
yes,
He would say that is like he said it's not when you what's the quote when the quote is when you see it you'll believe it, when I see it I'll believe it. It's like no, when you believe it you'll see it. It's exactly what
exactly.
you're saying, right? It's
Yes.
that no, it's the other way around. You have to believe it first to then see it.
And we actually have an energetic field also,
Mhm.
which is an auric field,
Mhm.
which goes into you were very curious about how our energetic state affects our physical external state.
Mhm.
And a couple of tools that I've used, David Hawkins' vibrational chart, which is very well known, very well published, and very, very much shared through psychology space, through physical science space, even through health and wellness.
Mhm.
Um, our energetic state, our vibrational state on that chart also correlates to the emotional wheel that a lot of therapists and psychologists use. And so our energetic state is asking the questions in a certain situation. How am I really feeling?
Mm,
Because
mhm.
people are discouraged from talking about their feelings and emotions. We've been taught that they're scary or they're dark, or you don't want to talk about that or share that out in public, or you don't want to air your dirty laundry or whatever, but it really isn't dirty laundry. It's just like, no, emotions have this energetic spectrum, and we've been taught to ignore it
Yeah.
because,
Interesting. One of the first things I say to people that you've got to notice it first. I think that's what you've got to notice it. Like, what is it? I'm feeling sad or depressed or whatever. Like, you notice that and then you move out from there. I think that's what
right.
you're saying, right? You have to start, and that we're not, in our society, we're not encouraged to do that. We're actually discouraged.
Well, and our attention is our most valuable asset.
Tell
Our
me, our
attention,
attention is our most valuable asset?
our attention and our energy are our most valuable assets.
Uh-huh.
And going back to, how we are, the current state of where we are as a human race in our society, and particularly in America, and I think a lot of countries are becoming more Western influenced. And it's not good or bad. It's just, let's be neutral about it and just pay attention. What's really
It's
going
not
on here?
balanced with where they come from. It's not balanced. It's just
Not.
the Western, we're not very balanced over here in the States.
No. And I'm very careful to keep the vibration high. I don't use words that invoke fear or shame because
Hmm.
that's not where I want to come from. I want to keep the conversation elevated. I won't ever drop it to where people can speculate and right. I don't want to create that environment at all. I just like to sit back and look at the whole picture and look at what's been going on for the last 100, 200 years. Look at how we've changed. Look at the addition of technology,
Yeah.
you know.
It's
Um,
going very fast. That in
yeah.
my lifetime, in your life, like it's gone fast. Could you tell me like there are some people that don't I think I understand what you mean by energy. Like, could we break it down a little bit? Like for anybody that's listening that goes, I'm not sure I'm buying all this. Like what is energy to if it affects everything in our lives? Like how because like it's not like the we can feel it, touch it. But what is that for you?
It is energy is very closely tied to emotions, and that's the best way that I can explain it, which is why I mentioned the emotional wheel, because it has like 180 different emotions.
Hmm.
And obviously some emotions make you feel sad or angry or shameful, right? And those would be the lower vibration or lower energies that go
Yes.
along with those emotions, right?
Yes.
Okay, so because I'm a science nerd and a geek, I like to think of a pH scale where water is neutral, water is acceptance. Water
Okay.
is neutral, meaning that we're not judging this is good or this is bad. We just
Right.
accept things as they are. And that's a great starting place. And then courage is right above that. When we enact courage, we know we have the power of choice to change our circumstances, to think, what would we rather have? What would we rather believe? Because all
Yes.
possibilities exist. And yet it's our energetic state of where we happen to be at a certain moment in time that actually creates the trajectory of the direction that we go. If we're always living in a negative space and we're always dipping down low, which, right, I mean, I think of anger as being very acidic because, right, on the pH scale, the lower we
Sure.
go, the more acidic it is,
Okay.
right? Can you imagine when you feel angry, how that just eats you up from the inside out and it just festers and we
Yeah.
don't know how to express it? And anger is among many emotions that actually affect the chemicals and neurotransmitters in our brains and those hormones that create pain and stress in our body. And a lot of people are very familiar with anger and angst and carrying around this, and it's an energy. And a lot of people
Mhm.
are stressed. And a lot of angst and anxiety is kind of sitting right there with that anger and frustration and depression and discouragement. It's like, how can we lift people out of that state? What's the opposite of an acid, right?
I'm not a science geek.
It's okay. Well, I mean, well, think of an acid. You would pour a base on it to neutralize it.
Oh,
So
okay, something
how
to
do we
neutralize. Okay, got it.
how do we neutralize anger? How do we bring it back up to acceptance with just like, wow, okay,
Mhm.
that happened. How can I not let it lower my
Yeah.
energetic state?
So I think this is fascinating, and I have studied this myself because it's so interesting. And coming from the world of psychology that I do and therapy that I do, it's like none of them are good or bad. It's just how's that feel? How's that working for you, right? How does that feel? Like I liked your idea of being at the level, the water level is acceptance. And below, I loved how you opened it up. And like below that level is where the turmoil, right? If you're in underwater, right, the turmoil, all the things are moving around, and like where's it coming from? And how does that feel in your body? How is it feeling for you? Is energy. And sometimes it's like, I just know something's off. I just know something doesn't feel right in my
Mhm.
body, in my mind, in my emotions, in energy. I don't know what to tell you. And it's like that becomes the time then to look in at what is going on energetically, is what I think you're saying. And if you're below that water line, probably time to do something about it. Even to
Right.
acknowledge, like, I'm
Mhm.
below the water line. I'm
Mhm.
below that line of acceptance, right? And what's churning underneath is a really valuable thing to do and explore, because then we can have some answers.
Yeah.
We can then figure out, what do we physically do? That's kind of our Western ideas, like, well, what do I do? Well,
Mhm.
first we gotta figure out what's going on,
Right.
because we might shoot in the wrong. It's just like you said, when it's like my lungs were hurting, but it ends up being up in their shoulders. Like, well, but if we did something down here in the lungs, when it's up here, like up in the shoulder part, like, you're not going to affect a change.
Right.
Same thing.
Mhm.
Um, so so you could live below that line. Like, what do you do to move up that scale then? How do you move up, like, to that water line, and what's above that?
Fresh air, oxygen. Different energies,
Yeah. Yeah.
different energies. It's courage,
Mm,
right? It's willingness to change.
mm,
I don't actually have, the chart in front of me,
hmm
but I think the goal for everyone is to return to peace and joy and love.
hmm
And so when we were talking about how do you neutralize an acid, like neutralize anger, well, you pour love on it.
Oh, I see. The
Yeah.
neutralizer.
You neutralize it, yes.
Oh,
Compassion, empathy, kindness,
right.
right? These are all the soft, fluffy
Oh,
emotions
yeah.
that nobody loves to talk about because they don't think they're important. Well, we
They
were
seem very airy and kind
they
of
very
like,
they just seem airy and fairy, and
yeah,
yet
yeah, yeah.
they're very necessary. And
They're
sometimes we
necessary.
can't see these attributes in ourselves anymore because we are underwater. We are struggling and we think we're alone and we don't know how to ask for help because we've been actually conditioned to do it on our own,
Yeah.
especially women that are in middle age, right?
Yes.
We've
I
been
think
we've
that's what
been
you're talking about, moving into the 21st century. Being the 21st century person is like the pull them up by the bootstrap thing is not acceptable. It's never did work. Back in the day, they actually had a community, right? We moved away from in the industrial age, we moved away from the community, but back further, there
right.
was a community that helped out. So you really weren't pulling yourself up you had the community helping pulling you up.
Mhm.
But we've gone to such an isolationism, individuation. I hope I'm
Yes.
using the right term. But you know what I'm talking about, where it's individual, and you're talking about, uh-oh, this is a problem. Energetically, it's a problem.
Well, it is. And as humans, as a species, we're meant to be connected and
Mm-hmm.
and in collaboration with
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
And yes, to your point, we are becoming more disconnected through technology and as you said, industry, um, and communities are broken apart, but also families are broken apart.
Yeah.
Even the family unit being distracted with technology and television and kids and feeling it's all this programming that we think we have to be doing all these things.
It's interesting to me that I come in my history as a therapist. I have a long history of working with people around substance abuse and substance dependence. And it's interesting to me to watch what's going on in our society and how close what's going on with the device is just like I've seen in chemical dependency in terms of I can't live without it. Where is it? People, kids cry without it. And it's interesting that we've gone to that extreme with it and that it's taken over who we are and kind of moved, I think energetically, it has moved us off of our center spot.
I want to keep coming back to the energy because I feel like I've left some open space there.
Go for it.
Well, unpacking the stories from the past to pay attention, um, we get to ask ourselves these questions, and curiosity is actually a superpower that is one of the components of healing, along with get some support, therapist, coach, books, teachers, mentors, get some help. Feeling like you're drowning alone is a
Mm-hmm.
very miserable experience, and I know that I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
And asking for help was the first key for me to step out of that abyss, that emotional abyss that I had lived in most of my life, even into my mid 50s. Um, but that was the most courageous act of love that I gave myself, was asking for help.
Can I go back for a second? You sparked my mind. What you said, that curiosity, that you have to embrace curiosity. What do you mean by, like, how you pull out of it is being curious? What does that look like?
If there's something unsettling in your soul, and when you say feed your soul, we're going to pull it right back in there.
Yeah.
Feeding your soul isn't about your anatomical stomach. You're hungry for more. You know there's more, and you just don't know how to put your finger on it. You know that you're made for more. You've been going through the motions. You've been on this merry-go-round that keep these self-repeating loops, and we keep coming back to the same place, and we're not moving forward, or we're not progressing. And our souls are meant for expansion,
Mm-hmm.
right? Our soul is not our stomach. Our soul is,
Mm-hmm.
it could be the heart cavity. It could be actually right below, the solar plexus. It depends on where your understanding of different cultures and how they explain the different energy centers in the body. But our soul is absolutely somewhere in the thoracic cavity, and that's where our heart space is. And people have that light has dimmed or has been turned off completely. And yet we know there's more. And
Mm-hmm.
so wherever there's a question, there's always an answer. And the answer is always inside the individual. And so we ask for help, is like, can you please help me turn the light on? Can you please help me shift my perspective or see something outside of me, or give me a tool, something that can help me relate back to myself, to pull that attention back onto me so I can start doing the healing work and releasing all the things that maybe we've been carrying around too long that are causing us pain, discomfort, stress, struggle, anxiety. And a lot of times we're carrying things that we don't need to carry anymore. Maybe they helped us in the past, they were temporary. We didn't learn how to release them. But also, what I have found is I was actually carrying things that weren't mine to begin with.
Oh yeah.
So getting
Oh
super
yeah.
curious, right? When we get where
Yes.
we start asking those questions, and then we get to check all of our biases, our prejudices, our thought processes. When a thought enters our mind, and we're thinking like, that doesn't sound like me. That's not who I want to be,
Mhm.
right? It's like, ultimately the question is who do I want to be? And if it isn't you at your core, then get curious. It's like, where did that come from? Who influenced me to think or act or behave a certain way? And then go back to that. So when we talk about energetic state, when something happened, what was I feeling at that moment? Like, we get triggered. Triggers are actually teachers.
Mm-hmm.
You're there to remind us, like, oh, there's something unresolved that I didn't reconcile or I
Yeah.
didn't clear.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, our human bodies are like antenna. We're walking around on this rock and we're collecting all this data, all this information, and then we judge ourselves. And that's what causes the suppression, repression, oppression of our soul's expansion.
Hmm.
And it takes being a scientist with
Hmm.
a curious mind to start
Wow.
looking at the pieces of data. Like all the puzzle pieces are turned over. It's time
Mhm.
to start turning over those puzzle pieces and understanding how they interlock beautifully. And things have happened in our past, and people have come into our lives that left us questions like, what was this about?
Right.
And yet they were our greatest teachers to teach us how to adjust and learn and move through life with ease and grace.
Yeah.
So we understand all those things have happened for us.
You just told us a lot of things, and I wonder that can you break down like a couple of the primary tools that you think, because you said something about the tools and like, can you give us like if we could just leave with like a couple of things going, because you just gave like with nuggets, like there are quotables in everything you just said, Chris. Like, thank you so much for what you're talking about.
Mhm.
Because you have so many quotables right now. So what are a couple primary tools? Like if somebody could, I was like the doable, like when you leave today, do one, two. So we can just kind of go a couple of things. What might be a couple of tools that you think are super primary that our audience could take away today, could think about?
Um, Curiosity for number one.
Mm-hmm. I thought so.
Ask,
Okay.
ask great questions.
So be curious and ask great questions. And I think when you say that, so you went a lot into the curiosity, and I think in the questions, that was asking questions of yourself.
Yes.
What's going on? What is this thing? What does this mean for me? Going inside,
Mhm.
right? And so being curious and ask great questions.
Yeah. And it's free
And it's
and it's
free.
available to everyone, right?
Yeah.
We are so oversold and marketed to, exploited so heavily. And another good one is follow the money,
Whoa. Yes.
right? Who is benefiting?
I'm writing these down. I love them. Follow the money. No,
Follow the
it's a
money.
good I would agree on that one too.
Yeah. I mean, who's really benefiting by
Who
being,
benefits from this thing? Yeah.
yeah, there's a great book. And if I may, I don't know if you know, I've talked about this. This is Your Mind on Plants.
I don't know that one.
Michael Pollan.
Oh, Michael Pollan, yes.
So when we study more and get curious, and I don't mean studying one subject, but get diverse, get
Yeah.
curious about all different types of education, even economics. Even if you come from a health and wellness background or a teaching background, philosophers, economics, history, right? Cultures, like get a well-rounded education because we've niched down so much and just have focused in one lane, but yet we have all this knowledge and education. And so get curious and follow that energy. Like if something's piquing your interest, your soul's telling you, go check that out. There's something out there for you to learn, and don't be ashamed of it because every person we connect with, we learn something about them. We also learn something about ourselves that we forgot. Okay. The power of connection.
Yes.
Um, Being connected to other like dead philosophers, dead teachers, people in books, right? Read a flippin' book.
Read the people that over
They've been
history
here
other people
before.
have read and go, dang, this
Exactly.
is big because it probably is something good in there for you to listen to. Yeah, read the old stuff.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's interesting because it's like, I mean, I know I'm repeating the wheel here, but I mean the coaching industry has just really gone off like gangbusters, wildfire. And I was starting to follow some coaches, and I'm thinking they're all kind of saying the same thing. Why is that? I want to go to their teachers, right?
Where did
And
they
that,
get that information from? Yes.
right? Because it's all borrowed. I mean, I couldn't tell you anything different than you probably haven't heard 1,000 times. What makes it unique and different is how we teach it
Yes.
and how we make it relatable from our experiences as in our
Yeah.
stories, right? And part of my, well, being curious,
Mhm.
studying old philosophers from
Mhm.
multiple different cultures, Greek philosophers, right? The good
Hmm.
old Socrates and Plato, Hippocrates, right? First, do no harm. Then other doctrines, Taoism, Buddhism, right? All these different cultures of spirituality, they all say a very similar thing.
Sure.
How can we all be wrong? Why does it have to look like just one thing?
There's a lot of wisdom in all of that. And I like the idea of like where did it all come from, and like let's start connecting back with that, because the philosophy over the ages, the ones that have stuck true, it's like, what did they say? And then the current people have a version of it, but then what's my version of it? Right?
Right.
Then how do I enter, and what's my voice
Mhm.
within whatever's going on, and how do I work with this? So you told me that you have an acronym that you use to teach how simple our health and wellness can be. What is that? I'm super
Oh
curious. What
yeah.
is
Well,
that?
this came to me a couple years ago, and when we're all trying to brand ourselves and come up with something that sets us apart and makes us unique. But I was thinking, and I don't know how, well, it was just divine download, as I'm just going to say.
I'm gonna we're talking about energy here. We're all friends. Like
Yeah, yeah,
we get
yeah.
that.
Simple is the new sexy. And the body really is a magnificent organism. And when we give it exactly what it needs, it will do its job, right? We were
Mhm.
given the ability, our bodies were given these abilities and all these multiple systems working together beautifully.
True.
We live in a society of excesses. We've been conditioned for the excesses, and we've been given our body things that are actually toxic to the body, whether it's food, nutrition, right? Different types of whatever. Again, I'm going to keep the vibration high on the conversation.
Well, I know, but no, but people put, but it is also like, what are the pharmaceuticals? What are the street drugs? What are the things over the counter? What are the things, the food things that like don't, you talked about that thing of like checking back in. Are
Yeah.
you checking back in? And there are a lot of ways to do that. That how the checking back in on how's that working? You know, how does my body feel with this?
Yeah.
And is this keeping me, above that
Mhm.
water line,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
But
it's important to ask that of ourselves.
yeah. I went back to the very first day I was on this planet as a baby, as an infant.
Yeah.
And I got really serious about all we are is love, and that's all we want. We want attention, we want our needs met, and of course we're dependent on those needs being met until we're old enough to take care of those needs. We weren't born to be dependent on an external substance. We weren't born to be addicted to anything. We were born with these human bodies that just needed basic things.
Mm.
And so that's where the acronym comes from,
Hmm.
OWNER. And that's where if we can return to these basics, common sense that we learned in eighth grade health and PE class, O is for the oxygen.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The power of our breath
Yeah.
is the only thing right? And it's free, and it's for all of us. And our brain can only survive for 4 minutes without it.
And it
It is
calms down our nervous system. It
yes.
literally is the key to calming down your nerve, calming down the dysregulation. Go to the
Mhm.
breath, go to the breath, go to the breath.
Go with the breath.
Yes.
Absolutely. And it's free for everyone,
It's free.
as long as you take care of your lungs.
Yeah.
And the W is water. The
Okay.
second most needed, necessary compound. Water's a
Yeah.
compound. I was going to say elements, like nope.
Scientist.
Um, the body can only survive for about 4 days without water. The body doesn't need caffeine. The body doesn't need wine. The body doesn't need soft drinks. The body just needs clean water. The N is nutrients, vitamins and minerals, eating real food, which most of the food that we eat now isn't, it's processed, adulterated. That's another conversation. So, getting real clean food
Right.
that's not processed,
Mm-hmm.
that's a priority. And teaching people how to shop the perimeter of the grocery store. That's where all the real food is. Usually everything in the middle is something processed. And that
Yes.
actually comes back from my personal training days. It's like shop the perimeter of the store,
Stop the perimeter. That's what
right?
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's true.
The E
E.
is, what do you think E is?
Environment.
No,
Dang. Energy.
no.
Okay, then I'm at a loss.
This is very basic. Remember, I wanted to keep it super basic. OWNER. oxygen, water, nutrients, exercise.
Oh, okay.
Or for people who are exercise adverse, I use explore your options for movement.
I call it movement. Just whatever, we're in a physical body, we gotta move, we gotta move. We gotta move.
Absolutely. Yes.
I whatever word fits for you, you gotta move the body. You
Well,
got
again, coming from personal training, some people didn't like that word. It's like, okay, well, let's find another word that means the same thing that gets the result we want.
Well,
Move
in
your
my
body.
experience with diet culture, which is a lot of what I talk about with clients, is with binge eating, is about that exercise got co-opted by the diet industry, and we connect it completely with diet food and being on a diet. And so what I like to do is let's disconnect it. And like, how do we move our body? We are physical beings. We have to move our body. This is what you're talking about. Ex oxygen, water, nutrients, exercise. It's like we're in a physical body. How are we going to make that work?
Well, and actually, exercise or movement is one way to move that negative energy out of the body,
True that.
right?
Yes.
So I
It
teach a
is
lot
one way. I mean, that is a tool
about.
for getting the expression out. If there are
Mhm.
no words, it's like, what's the movement that's necessary? Do
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Go for a walk,
Absolutely.
dance, wiggle in your chair, whatever.
True.
Wiggle your fingers and toes. I mean, you use what you have and focus on what you can do. Because
Yeah.
everybody comes with a different set of limitations,
Hmm.
but there's always something we can do. I mean, there's plenty of stories on the internet of quadriplegics
Hmm.
who self-express through different ways and means, right?
True.
So,
Yeah. Find your way.
yeah.
And
And
what's the R?
the R is the most underappreciated, underutilized part in any fitness regimen,
Rest?
rest and recovery.
Yes.
Yeah, I always thought it was kind of interesting how he'd go to a 60-minute class
Yeah.
and at minute 58, oh, it's time to stretch and rest before you run out the door to your next thing. You know, when the body is going through grief or loss or, something traumatic has happened, nobody can tell us actually how long the rest and recovery period takes. And
True.
so removing the shame
True.
from that, and
Yeah.
particularly as very driven women, we've been conditioned to ignore our needs and just be get up and go and take care of other things and go to the job, right? We've had surgery. Oh, how quickly can you heal so you can get back on your job? And sometimes we've just been conditioned to be goers and doers instead of how are we treating ourselves?
Well, and the rest and recovery is, it's interesting. I used to go to a gym where oftentimes we would go up right to the hour and they'd say, okay, peace out, go ahead and go and do your cool down at home. It's like, wait, why can't that should it's this kind of we have to spend 50 minutes, first 10 is getting your heart going and then 50 minutes of the workout and then do your rest and recovery at home. It's like, well, but I thought that just doesn't fit. Like, we actually need to train ourselves. Like, how do we recover? Like, that's part of the process is like, how do we start to recover? How do we start to rest? Because we've been encouraged to not
Yeah.
rest.
It is the most neglected part of our days.
I would agree.
And that's not including sleep. Sleep is a given,
Yeah.
and a lot of times there's a lot of heaviness going on in life. We're
Yeah.
juggling a lot. We're not giving ourselves
Yeah.
time to recover in between. Do you remember the book, The Four Agreements?
Yes.
And so Don Miguel Ruiz, he uses the word sin, not in a religious context,
Hmm.
but in a spiritual context. And sin is to go against oneself. If your soul is asking for more, and we don't honor that or get curious and start asking ourselves, what is it that my soul is seeking? That's a form of neglect. And I actually took that word, SIN, and created an acronym.
Mm.
Sin is actually self-induced neglect.
Self-induced neglect. I like that. I like that a lot. I really love your owner oxygen, water, nutrients, exercise, rest, and recovery. I like that because it's really simple and it's like, am I doing any of I need to do those today. How am I doing that? Like, I mean, you could walk through that list literally every day and go, have I done something in each of these categories? And then if you at least did that, your day
Mhm.
would be a lot better. A
Right.
lot better. So I want to know what I ask everybody at the end of our podcast is how do you feed your soul? What do you do, Chris?
I have a stellar morning ritual,
Ooh, okay.
um, and I improvise it as needed because
Uh-huh.
it's not about perfection. It's about consistency. More days than not, even on the weekend. I like to get up early. I'm an early girl because that is the quietest time in the house. Nobody's asking me for anything. That's when I read.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm a reader. I read lots of different types of educational materials. I'm not big on fiction. I'm in growth mode. And I'm like a sponge, just absorbing all of this great stuff that's helping me align with my bigger purpose. So I do a whole lot of reading and it's study. I call it study time. It's no different than if you were paying thousands of dollars to go to take a college course or an online course. Again,
Yeah.
libraries, books full of amazing teachers. Some still not with us, right?
Well, not on the planet.
Yeah. Um,
So really
some
getting up
writing.
early and spending time reading and really getting that information.
Well, it's the stillness.
Stillness. Mm.
Allowing myself to sit still in my thoughts. If my eyes wander off the page and I get a thought or I could get a correlation with a story from my past that I can weave it into. Um, I read a lot of times with the intention that I know I'm going to teach it to someone else later. So when I can integrate and implement a concept from another teacher mentor into my own story that's relatable and relevant, then I can
Yeah.
teach it. So I read and educate with the intent to teach others.
And you get the benefit of it too. Like I have to
Yeah,
when I read it, and I plan to use it, like I have to integrate it in for myself so I can understand it so then I can articulate it out.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
it's like a double benefit.
Hmm.
Yeah.
For sure. But
Mhm.
my husband went through a valley of PTSD a couple years ago. And I found a book when I was actually going to Greece that summer. And I wanted to go get a book on Greek mythology because I loved all the gods and goddesses and all the stories, right?
Uh-huh.
I found a book called How to Think Like a Roman Emperor, which is
Wow.
very masculine, right? I mean, just the essence of the book's like, okay, because I needed to meet him where he was. He wasn't ready to hear about love and light and spirituality. I could meet him where he was and give him something that he could recognize that he's not alone, that all people at all time have these circumstances that they go through. And
Mhm.
how do we come out on the other side determines how we thrive and survive in life. I found that book and it's Marcus Aurelius, right? I mean, he was right there in the Stoic philosophy era. And so he and I have been very consistent, avid readers of Stoic philosophy since, I mean, almost 3 years. And it's even allowed me to rebuild, and I call it like a reconstruction zone.
Mhm.
Like you have bricks of your life that have been components of your life that maybe got cracked or broken. Stoic philosophy is a great foundation to rebuild those blocks
Mhm.
so they're more solid. So you have a foundation of who you are and how you want to show up. It's
Mhm.
great for leaders. It's great for parents. It's great for business owners and people who really have a desire to show up as, of course, the four pillars are courage, temperance, wisdom, and justice.
Mhm.
That's it. As a grown adult, it took me a long time to get there. I wasn't emotionally regulated up until a couple of years ago.
It takes doing the work. And I appreciate you being on here today, Chris. Like I think anybody could come into this podcast today at any point and get really good nuggets. Like there are a lot of standalone topics that you brought up today, and I really appreciate you coming in and doing this because like it's clear to me and I think to the audience that like you've done a lot of work and you've read a lot of books, and so you've had the life, you've read the books, you've put it all together for yourself, and you put that together. And I find this conversation has been very dynamic and enlightening. I have my own takeaways. So like, I mean, I literally been writing, if anybody sees me looking down, like I've been writing what you've been saying. So I really appreciate what you've been talking about. And I look forward to hearing what people say their takeaways are.
Mhm.
Um, we have a giveaway for you, is that for people to talk to you more and to get to know you and to have conversations. It's connect with Chris Dyer, Dyer.com. We'll link it in the notes so that they can know to contact you. Um, so I think that's the best thing, is that you have so much to offer that I do believe the right and perfect people are super going to be really attracted to this message.
Well, it's not just for women only. It's for everyone,
It's for everyone.
right? I mean, healing is not just for women. It's
Hmm.
also our men need also the opportunity to recover,
And I
rest and
like your
recover.
story about your husband. I think that's was really powerful, that really meeting him where he's at
Mhm.
and helping wasn't isn't the right word. Being there and just being open, right? I'm not making him, I'm not encouraging him. I'm just being there with him through this probably dark with PTSD. It can feel very dark. And
Yeah,
like being there in that, and then having this offering of, I don't know, I had this idea, this thing sounds interesting. And he gets to take it or not take it without you having to have him do it a certain way, I think is beautiful. And men need more of that, or an opportunity for that
yeah.
when when it fits for them.
Well,
So it's not
he's
just for women.
evolving on his own, and as things haven't changed much, right? Boys mature later than girls typically, and I think I think men have been programmed to be a lot in their pride and ego, and so I think it's going to take him a little more time to finesse that out for himself. But all I'm here to do is to support and hold the space.
Cool. I love that. I encourage anybody, take Chris up on her offer, connect with chrisdyer.com, have a conversation with her, see where there's a match and how she might help you. This has been a fascinating conversation, Chris. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you, and I appreciate your willingness to really give a lot of very powerful, powerful information.
Thank you.
So thank you. And thank you for everybody listening on the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast. I look forward to talking with you guys next time. And look up Chris, because I think you'll get a lot out of talking to her. Thanks, guys. Thank you for joining us on the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast. We love bringing you fresh content to help you feed your soul. We would appreciate it if you would subscribe and leave a comment about our podcast so others can find us. This podcast is not a replacement for mental health counseling. If you are suffering, seek out a qualified mental health provider. You are worth it.